So I spent about 25 years working in the city in various forms, but mostly as an investor. I ran a big equity fund for a company called Jupiter. And that was great fun for the vast majority of the time. I really enjoyed it. I met some great people and had a lot of success in the first part of my career. Um, that all kind of changed in 2016. Brexit was without getting into the politics of it, it was pretty disastrous from my fund's performance point of view. So my sort of track record evaporated quite quickly. And I had a little health scare a few months after that, which thankfully wasn't serious, but it certainly made me think about how I lived my life. I wasn't here forever, and I'd try and make sure I was enjoying what I was doing as much as possible. And I'd always had a big interest in sports as a participant, investor, sponsor, all sorts of ways. And I'd looked at the way that sports teams look after and support their athletes with coaching, medical, physio, nutrition, all these kinds of supports. Whereas in the world of financial services, they pay people lots of money, but you're basically left to sink or swim. And if it's not going well, either they'll fire you or maybe they'll pay you a bit more money to suck it up. And so it felt to me like there was a lot that could be learned from one to the other. And I suppose I was really trying to design what I would have benefited from when I needed it, really. So a combination of professional coaching to help with the challenges you face in your working life, but also alongside that, helping people with their physical and mental health, because I was always of the view that the two are firmly intertwined in both a good and bad way. And those sort of broader, big sort of life questions, what do you actually want to get out of your life as well? So really trying to build all three of those elements into my coaching work. So most of the time, people come to me first because they've got a professional challenge of some description. It could be that they've just stopped enjoying what they do. Sometimes it takes people a while to realize it, but some form of change is needed, and that's a pretty scary thing to do if you've been in the same industry or the same company for a long time. Sometimes people are knackered and burnt out, for want of a better phrase. They've got work in their life and maybe family, but no time for anything else, and it feels like their life's become very narrow. So some of that is sort of big life questions, but some of it's sort of time management and trying to use your time in the way you really want to, rather than the way other people design it for you. And then I do have a group of other clients who I call my sort of optimizers, who just want to be, they haven't got a problem as such. They just want to be the best they can be, or they might have a specific goal of becoming a CEO or an MD or maybe a partner in their particular firm. So those are probably the three principal categories. I think the first thing we really have to try and tease out of people, and it does take a while sometimes, is what's the aim actually? What is their purpose in life? What do they enjoy doing? What is it that makes them feel sort of happy and fulfilled? And then we can start digging into some of the detail. Now, professional challenges can take some time to figure out. You've got to figure out what people would like to do, and then it can obviously take time to, if it's moving company or moving profession, that's something that evolves over a period of months. What I quite like is working on people's health at the same time, is that there we can usually find ways of making changes a little bit quicker. Obviously it's very specific to the individual. But one thing I've really learned through my coaching career, and all of it revolves around behavior change or habit change in some shape or form, is to try and start small. I've had people who come with very sort of lofty ambitions, and when they don't see progress being made relatively quickly, you can easily get sort of downhearted or dispirited. So when I'm doing a first session with somebody, and at the end of it, I'll write up some action points that we've agreed on to talk about sort of next time around. We'll make some of those initial ones really small, almost embarrassingly small sometimes, such that there's a sort of 95%, maybe even higher chance that they're going to achieve those first ones. And then you're starting to build some momentum, people feeling good about change, and then more likely to embrace the next thing that we talk about. So sleep, the benefits of better sleep, let's call it better sleep rather than good sleep, are both long-term and short-term. So on the short term, it's things like improves your energy, improves your mood, improves your brain function, all things. And these are all proven scientifically now. We're not dealing in the realms of speculation and hypotheticals. So those are obviously all things that can help from a work point of view within your family environment as well. From a physical perspective, if you're training or exercising, it's actually when you're sleeping and recovering that you make the improvements, getting fitter or stronger or whatever. That happens when you're resting after you've trained. One that people are slightly surprised about is that you can lose weight by sleeping better. There's some great studies that show that people who sleep badly often end up consuming 300 or 400 more calories than those who are sleeping well. And if you think the sort of typical calorie intake over a day for a man or a woman is sort of 2,000 to 2,500, that's quite a big incremental amount. So if just by sleeping better, you'll reduce your calorie intake, it's often you'll end up eating badly as well in terms of what you eat when you're sleeping badly as well. And then longer term, I mean, big diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, cardiovascular disease have all shown to sort of reduce the likelihood of those for people with better sleep. But to simplify it, I usually just ask people, how do you feel when you've had a good night's sleep compared to a bad night's sleep? And nobody has any trouble answering that question. The challenge in helping people is sleep tends to be what people do when they've finished everything else during the day. It's almost the residual, whatever time is left over. So one of the things I work hard with people on is just trying to reverse that psychology. Let's get a good block of sleep in first, and then decide what you're going to fit into the rest of your day. I think it certainly makes it a lot harder to thrive. But a lot of people struggle that they don't feel like they got the time to invest in improving their health and their well-being. So you've really got to get into the mentality and the psychology of that, and help them to understand that if you do, you're going to be more productive, you're going to be in a better mood, you're going to be more resilient to stressful situations. So actually the payback on doing it is very high. But sometimes what you need to work on, and it feels quite sort of basic, if you like, is can we free up some time in people's diaries in the first place? If I want people to spend more time sleeping or exercising or doing social activities, etc., I can't add any extra hours to their week. So what can we do less of? So you'd be surprised how much time I spend with people, even with their assistants, sometimes going through a weekly calendar, almost meeting by meeting, saying, well, do you have to do that one? Could you do that? Could that be 30 minutes rather than an hour? Could you do it once a fortnight? Helping people to delegate better. Still, even really senior people, something often that people find very difficult, rather than trying to do everything yourself to the highest possible standard. Can I get somebody else to do it? Can it be done well enough rather than perfectly in an hour rather than 5 hours? It's funny, once you sort of dig into the minutiae of this, what the actual skill required to enable people to devote some of this extra time that's perhaps needed. So Pitstop is an app that we've developed really to help men get the most out of their lives. The founder has a great story. He had a health scare himself at a relatively early age, and didn't feel like there was anything out there that could give him a good framework for helping him improve. And there are lots of health and wellbeing apps out there, but very little, in fact, hardly anything that was aimed specifically at men, which sort of surprised us when when we figured it out. And really, there's three elements to it. The first is helping people to learn what the right things are to be doing, whether that's health, professional, financial, all aspects of your life, but doing it in a time efficient way. There's so many great books, podcasts out there on all these sorts of topics, but I find the vast majority of people just don't have time to read them or listen to them. So we've condensed what we think are the best ones into sort of bite-sized 5-minute sort of chunks, and then on top of that, pick out the action points. So don't just read it, but what might you do differently as a consequence of it? And that leads into the second part, that this is not just for fun and information. This is about habit change and using behavioral science to enable people to do things differently, and in as easy a fashion as possible. And then the third part is sort of getting men to talk to each other about all sorts of things. There's quite a lot of social science sort of backing this up now, that women generally, and obviously this is a generalization, are better at talking to one another and being a bit more open about certain subjects. So can we find easy, accessible forums where men can talk to like-minded individuals, get things off their chest? I've certainly found in my coaching work that sometimes just letting somebody talk something through out loud, even if I can't propose a wonderful solution or whatever, just this sense of getting it out there, getting it off your chest, and smart people, when they're talking it out, will probably end up in a better place and maybe with a better solution than if it's just all internalized. I think, given my focus on sleep, it would be, can you get yourself 15 or 20 minutes more sleep every day? And doing it once or twice won't make any difference, but you compound that over the course of a year, and you'll see so many benefits from that side of things. If I was to answer the question a bit more broadly, I would go back to this point of making change easy rather than difficult, finding small steps to begin with, and that I want people to still be ambitious. We can have big targets, but do it in really small, easy steps where the psychology is working in your favor. I think that's probably the thing I've learned the most as a coach. And I suppose for a little sort of advertisement from a coaching point of view is having that sense of accountability. Definitely find with my clients that will agree a set of action points in one session, and they know the next time I see them, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. How did you get on with X, Y, and Z? And that's really helpful to people. The same way that if you're in a gym with a personal trainer, you'll probably work 15-20% harder than if you're there on your own. So that's probably, I've given you 3 answers to rather than the one that you asked for, but I hope all of those are useful.